So, what a great turnout we have. Welcome, everybody, to Austin Organic Gardeners. I'm Mary. I'm president of the club. We have lots of great food. There's some soup and brownies that aren't very sweet, and popcorn. And you're welcome to share or have any of that. We also have share plants and seeds, but usually we do that at the end of the night so that everybody has a fair shot at it. Lacey's also here. If you want to become a member, membership really helps us keep going with all the things we do. It's only $25 a year, and it helps us have online Zoom. It helps us with our newsletter, helps us with having a website, the videos we put on YouTube. Really is a lot of money to do all that. So if you can support us with our yearly membership, I really appreciate it. And Lacey will take your money if you're interested. But our meetings are completely free and open and welcome to the public. So it's not a requirement to become a member at all. So it's February. How did everybody's garden do with the mini apocalypse? They're freezing cold. Anybody have anything that worked really great during the winter, or that you'd like to talk about, or something you'd like to know better, or anything like that? And if anybody's new, please stand up and introduce yourself. So let's start there. Who's new? Say hi. Introduce yourself.
I'm Daniel.
Hi, Amy.
And we live down in South Austin. We just wanted to attend the event and see what's going on. Amy has a pretty big garden with lots of space. And want to figure out what we can put in there and go about it.
Welcome. Thanks for coming.
And my favorite winter thing to grow is spinach.
Oh, yes. Excellent.
John.
Welcome, John.
Yeah.
Yay.
We have butterfly and sunflower.
Thanks for coming.
So my name's Alex. I wasn't sure there's someone behind me. I just moved to Austin like a month ago from Eagle Pass, Texas.
Welcome.
Kind of learned the area.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Anyone else?
I'm Sophia. I've lived in Austin since 2007. I've had one garden before the garden even started this year, and I love flowers.
Me too. Welcome, Cassie.
I just planted a bunch of perennials that I did cover because they were so young. And they did okay. I think I just,
Oh, good luck. Good work.
I don't know because I was just trying to look at last year. I just threw a bunch of flowers in my garden and thought that would work, and it didn't.
I threw a bunch of seeds out last year, flower wise. That was last year was my first garden. All my veggies did great, and my flowers did really, really poorly.
Oh,
So,
welcome. Anyone else?
Surprised to the winter was, I grew partially, because they attract white soil hill.
Mm-hmm.
They made it all through.
All right.
They're good.
Anyone else new? Like to say hi?
I'm Leah, and I've lived here 35 years. I'm sorry I've not been to your meetings. And I love flowers. I think when I saw that, it was all about cut flowers. Because I buy them from H-E-B every week.
Anyone else? Like to say hi?
Hi, I'm Lauren. Person here. So glad to see everyone. I grow cut flowers, and I'm excited about sharing a little bit about me.
Welcome. Anyone else like to say hi?
My name is Roy.
All right.
Antonio, and I think everything that we had died during this winter,
except some plants that we bought in New Mexico, so they did fairly well. Of course, they're probably more acclimated to the winter. But we're happy to be here. We actually saw Laura on KLRN, and so we enjoy the work that she does, and so we're inspired to grow flowers in our yard.
Yeah, anybody else see that episode? I saw it. Awesome. It was a great episode on KLRU. She was last week, I think. What else? So anybody have anything about the winter that they want to share, and things that survived or they'd like to survive, or anything that worked? Anybody got anything about the cold temperatures that they'd like to share?
Well, I think we were really surprised how well leaves work.
That, 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 that,
Because
that,
you told us about
that.
this a few months ago.
Yes.
And we actually tried it, everything survived, covered with leaves. And we bought frost cloth for other things that leaves wouldn't work, and frost cloth was, that's okay.
It's okay, yeah.
I don't think we killed anything. Leaves, it's great.
Yeah, they're free. It's so crazy how something free can be so good. So just to reiterate, I recommended, if you didn't have anything else, just pile on top of a plant you want to save, and for the winter, the real cold temperatures, and they're saying it works. So that's fantastic news. Yeah, so I did that too, but now I'm trying to deal with the leaves. I've been making these little pathways of leaves and piles of leaves, because that's the other part of it, is what to do when it's over. And I guess I'm a little worried still. It's February. We could have another thing, but I looked at the forecast. There was nothing all the way to the end of the month, so we might be clear. We hope, but keep those leaves standing by. So, yeah. What else? So do we have any announcements? Okay.
So a few things. I brought mushroom blocks, and feel free to grab those. I have more in the back of my car. We canceled our workshop last weekend, so there are a bunch already here.
Sorry.
So I have a lot, but the workshop is postponed for next month. It did fill up, so we probably won't be adding a lot of tickets unless we hear back from people that can't make it this next month. But yeah, so David Kramer, he's here tonight, and he brought a lot of excellent books that are specific, gardening books that are specific to this region, varying topics. And he's moving. We're so sad he's moving. And feel free to grab a book. Let's try to keep it to one book per person. And he also is going to be having a garden garage sale on March the 16th. March 16th.
Mark your calendars.
So we'll probably put it in our newsletter to remind people. And we have a free newsletter that you can sign up for as well on our website if you already don't get them from us. And we put, things happening in the community, which include our upcoming workshops and talks. We do a second Saturday workshop of varying topics where everybody can get their kind of hands dirty. The one we have coming up in March, as I mentioned, is about growing mushrooms in the garden. And then we do a guest speaker presentation style, like every second Monday. And we've been doing that for a long time. We've been a garden club since 1948. Not here.
45.
45. Not here
at
Zilker the whole time, but the same family has been organizing and bringing people together around this type of gardening. And so we also tend the vegetable garden beds in the Pioneer Village here at Zilker. And so if you're interested, if you're a skilled gardener and you want to join our garden committee of leaders that want to help other volunteers that sign up, and it's a lot of beginners that sign up and they want to learn gardening. If you are interested in helping be a volunteer leader and teacher, we could use more help. We're starting to build that community. So you can come talk to Steve and I over here. We'll get your name and email. We're starting to build a committee, especially as spring gardening is going to get started here soon. We meet every Saturday morning from 9 till 11 and tend to the garden beds. And they're demonstration gardens. So we demonstrate organic methods of growing vegetables. And so that's, if that excites you and you want to be part of that, we're definitely needing more people to lead at least once every month or every 2 months. And we kind of keep a chain of what's going on, like a email group or a text group where we all keep each other in check of what's going on in the garden and what we're planning. So
if you want to raise your hand, Steve will come around and catch your name and contact info, and we can keep that going. Anybody interested?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. That'd be good. Great.
Okay. Oh.
Somebody let her in, please.
So yeah, and before we get started and before I
go get
introduce, okay, I just wanted to give everybody a heads up of what we have coming up next month. So Doug from the Central Texas Cherokee Township will be presenting on Milpa, or Three Sisters agriculture, which is an ancient, and it's actually protected through UNESCO. It's a type of gardening and growing of vegetables. Traditionally, in people in the Oaxacan Valley of Mexico, they've been growing this way for a long time. So he's going to talk about how people in North America also did these techniques and some of the challenges. And we're going to be starting our Three Sisters again. We do one every every spring and every fall. So we'll be growing one again in the teaching gardens, demonstrating that. And so come learn. It's gonna be all about storytelling. He's gonna have a lot of stories about the traditions that have been happening in North America and then in Mexico. So it's gonna be very exciting next month. So hope you can join us. And Mary has more, and then we'll get started with tonight's program.
So I had this idea. We always have a lot of extra stuff from our gardens, and we kind of don't know what to do with it. So sometimes it's a lot of seeds, or maybe dried herbs, or tomatoes, or something like that. And I thought maybe it might be fun to meet maybe 30 minutes, an hour before club and make stuff. So I'm thinking maybe herb bundles for tea, or food for the club night, or anything people want to do. Seed saving, we can put seeds in packages, just really meet and do a little bit of fun crafting time. So if anybody's interested in that, raise your hand. Steve will get your contact. And raise your hand, because I'm interested in ideas you might have, and we can move forward with that, because I just think that it'd be a nice way to create community with our surplus from our garden. So anybody? There we go. Go get him, Steve. So I'm going to read a little bit from a book called, yes.
I have a whole lot of pots in the back of the bed of my truck.
Oh, so after the meeting, David's saying, come out to the back, to the parking lot, and his truck has pots.
Most of them are 4-inch pots, and some are like 30-year-old. They were commercial. The guy in Columbus had a nursery, and I inherited I guess they're about 1.5 inch square pots. I've used them thousands of times. Some are beginning to break down, but they're very, very good. Just the right size for home propagation. They probably wouldn't be good for bringing them to our transplants, say, people want larger plants.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of those.
So everybody hear that? Come out to get pots in the end. Okay. So I'm going to read a little bit from my favorite book, The Forgotten Art of Flower Cookery. It's probably even out of print, but I think it's really fun to think about using edible flowers in cooking. And as it's flower night, I thought I'd talk about the violet. Greek mythology tells us about the relationship of Zeus and the nymph Io. In order to hide her from his jealous wife Hera, Zeus turned the lovely nymph into a white heifer. When Io's tears wetted the coarse grass upon which she was forced to feed, there sprang forth violets. Isn't that beautiful? Another legend about violets has it that Orpheus, being weary, stretched out upon a mossy bank to rest, and from the spot where he laid down his lute sprang the first violets. Throughout centuries, the violets has been associated with modesty, innocence, and love. Its beauty appealed to Napoleon, and his favorite flower, it became part of history as a political symbol. When he was banished to Elba, his last words were, "I will return with the violets in the spring." He returned in March 1815, violet time, and his pathway was strewn with violets. Napoleon marked each anniversary of his marriage to Josephine by sending her violets. The French, right? When he died, he was wearing a locket containing several faded violets from her grave. And for many years, the French government banned any reproduction of the violet because it was the symbol of the Bonapartists. Violets were among the first flowers to be cultivated for medicine and food properties, and later they played a more aesthetic role. The story is recorded of a French gentleman who devoted 30 years of his life to growing violets. Each day he sent his mistress a fresh bunch, and each night she plucked out the flowers and made a violet infusion, which she drank while toasting his devotion. Vitamins were unknown in those days, and the dear lady never knew she was getting substantial doses of vitamin C. Her healthy glow most likely was attributed to love. Violets are not just for food for romantics and poets, but have been a favorite of gourmet cooks since the days of ancient Rome and Greece, when violet wine was drunk and flowers were used for syrup, salad, sweetmeats, and preserves. In the 18th century, French cuisine considered crystallized violets a piece d'occasion, and cultivation of violets for candying and use in perfume became big business. Gourmet food stores still stock candied violets, and I bought them, from the shores of southern France. The English have long regarded the violet as a cosmetic necessity for their fair ladies, both as a facial pack and steeped for tea. Queen Victoria commanded the royal gardener not to be without fresh violets for her tea, syrups, honey, jellies, etc. Isn't that lovely? So now it's time to introduce our speaker. Angel?
All right. Thanks again, everybody, for coming out and filling up the auditorium room here tonight. I'm so happy to introduce Laura, who is going to be sharing her love and art of cut flower gardening, which she's been doing for several years now, since 2017. And so let's all give her a warm welcome tonight. Okay. I think that, then I think you can just go to your presentation. Is it in Power Keynote? Here? Yes. Keynote. Okay, there you go. Does that look good? Okay.
Thank you, Angel, for inviting me to talk. And thank you all for coming. I feel so loved and supported to see all my friends and gardening community here. I'm very excited and honored to share my gardening journey with you all. My name is Laura, and I am a Texas native. I grew up in Dallas and in the suburb area. My background is in education. I have a master's degree in curriculum and instruction, and I was a teacher for almost 10 years in elementary school. I currently live in East Austin, Texas. I have a sweet husband of 10 years, and we are raising a 6-year-old boy who is here. I moved to Central Texas in 2003 to attend Texas State University in San Marcos. And that's when I kind of started my gardening journey. In 2010, I moved to Austin, and then I joined more community gardens, growing mostly veggies and some flowers. And then in 2016, that's when I was at the Natural Gardener one day, just doing my fall veggie gardening, and I saw some anemone corms that kind of look like like cat turds. I was like, what are these? I'll try it. I'll just try it. I'm just going to try something new. So I planted them in my garden, and sure enough, here comes February, and they all grow, and they are just the most stunning flowers that I've ever grown. I had no idea that I could grow these kind of flowers here. And I was completely blown away, and that's kind of when I was ignited a new spark in my gardening journey. So in 2016, we finally bought our house in East Austin, and I was like, it is on. I finally had my own space, my own garden to call my own. We bought a corner lot, so I get lots of morning beautiful sun. I installed 4 raised beds there, and I wanted to grow more flowers. I also wanted to start a family, and so I knew I had less time with a new baby, being a new mom. And so I just planted a small veggie garden, also some more flower bulbs. And then sure enough, they all came up again, and that's kind of when I decided that I wanted to lean more into cutting flowers. I experimented with all different flowers at first, and eventually my garden was so full of flowers. I would deliver to neighbors and friends, and eventually I had a lot of encouragement to start something with this. They're like, Laura, this is something, you have something here, and maybe you should explore this path. And so my supportive and talented husband, who is an amazing designer, branded me La Otra Flora. And I kind of wanted to keep it an open-ended project. So I started just selling arrangements here and there to friends and neighbors. And now I still do that, and I also do cut flower consultations, and I've done small events, and I make dried flower bouquets and wreaths in the holidays. A little bit about my setup. It's pretty small. It's just in my yard. I don't have like acres. It's just me. My garden beds, I have 10 currently. I also have a small greenhouse, and I also have a hoop tunnel. A little bit more about my garden beds. I have 10, but I did start with 4. My friend Kyle from Foresight Land Design installed them with drip irrigation. I filled them up with sandy loam soil from Geo Growers, which I find is ideal soil for cutting. It drains really well. And I've grown so many different cultivars, so many varieties in different parts of the garden just to kind of see what grows well. And it's taken some time, season to season, to see what does grow well there. My garden beds are prime real estate, so I save them for my most favorite flowers. Agrostemma, there in the middle, all of my tender bulbs, ranunculus, my anemones, and I've grown dahlias in the back.
What's in the middle? Sorry.
Agrostemma is right in the middle, yeah. Every year is different in my garden. I like to variate my beds. So when I plant my garden, I keep in mind like plant height and plant size, just to make sure that all the flowers get the same amount of sun exposure and growth. There was one year where I had this really tall amaranth kind of grow in the corner, and it kind of dangled over, and it made this like beautiful secret garden tunnel. It was really magical.
So, why do you have that fence going at an angle?
So, so down there in the green?
Yes.
Oh, so that is just like netting to support the flowers. Mm-hmm. I have a small greenhouse. It's 6x8 polycarbonate. I got the clear plastic so that way I can grow seeds. I know they have like a diffused kind, so that's kind of more for like tropicals. So I mainly got it because I wanted to grow seeds, and I wanted some more room. I didn't have a lot in the house with a new baby and a dog and a cat. So I was like, I need this garden, this greenhouse. It's a controlled and protected space for my seeds and my plants. I closely monitor it. I have a thermometer in there that I look at the temperature every day. There's a fan in there that kind of kicks on whenever it gets too warm. I have a small heater that I use mainly for like a deep freeze. I have shade cloths of various sizes. There's like little louver vents on the side you can see at the bottom. They flap open and close mainly for airflow, and there's also a top vent that kind of props open so lots of the warm air can circulate. It gets a lot of really good morning sun and a little bit of afternoon shade. I feel it's really ideal. I do grow a lot of different cultivars, and I'm limited on space, so I experimented with soil blocking, and it's been a good option for me because it does save space. And I feel like my greenhouse is so pleasant. It's just one of my favorite places to be, especially this time of year when it's full of like little baby plants. And it is pretty dreamy in there. So winter storm of 2021, covered in 8 inches of snow. It's beautiful, but the night before I just panicked and I rushed all my plants inside, and I'm really glad I did because the little heater did not last 8 degrees. I have a hoop tunnel. It's 10 by 15. There's 2 main beds. There's a center aisle in the middle. I installed it in the fall of 2020. It's a DIY project. I just have some wood and some PVC pipes with rebarb and a giant piece of plastic over it. I installed irrigation in it, and there's a thermometer inside where I also monitor the temperatures. And I secretly got it to grow sweet peas. I just had to have them. I saw other people, that's what they were doing, so I was like, I need that too. The sweet peas, they have like hollow stems and are not great in deep freezes. So I wanted to have a hoop tunnel so I could have a nice protected and sheltered space. I also wanted to grow Iceland poppies that are really delicate, and also tender bulbs like my ranunculus and my anemones. There are advantages to having this. You mainly protected from high winds, rain, or hail. It gets pretty warm under the plastic, and so I feel like it kind of allows for faster growth and a nice stable environment. But it is a lot of work. It is a little bit high maintenance, and I have to keep track of the weather constantly. If it's really sunny, I have to open it up, get some nice airflow in there. If it's really windy, I have to anchor it down so it doesn't just like fly away. I have to monitor the soil. It doesn't get any rain in there, so I have to make sure that all the plants are nicely hydrated. And I do have to keep an eye on pests like spider mites who thrive on like the drier conditions. I don't have a heater in there. I just cover the plants if we are expecting a deep freeze, and they seem to do okay. In the summertime, I remove the plastic and I fold it up and I put it in storage. And then I have this big shade cloth that I put over it. And then there's the winter storm of 2021. It looks a lot worse than it actually turned out to be. The ice made like this really nice layer that gave it a little bit more insulation. So the plants were actually fine. It just, was really weighed down by the snow. But then once it came off, it kind of just like popped right back up. And it's like a little bit wonky in the back, but it still works fine. And then after that freeze came the summer of 2021, where I grew dahlias all summer. You can see here, there was my shade cloth over it, which gave this nice diffuse light. I don't think it got 100 degrees until August. We had nice rain. I grew all of these dahlias from seed, so it was a seed mix. I didn't know what variety it was. There was just like a surprise every day was like Christmas, coming out to see these dahlias open up. So I keep a journal. It keeps me on track of what seeds I've sown and where I planted them and when, because I forget all the time of what I did and when I did it. So I go back and reread from previous years as a reference. And when I do plan a garden, I think about what flowers I want to bloom and when, and then I go back like 90 or 100 days, depending on the flower, and then that's kind of when I start seeds. So for example, if I want marigolds in October, those are 90 to 100 day flowers. So I start seeds in July, and then I transplant them in August with some shade because I know it's pretty intense then. And then once the temperatures cool down, I remove the shade, and then they continue to grow, and then I get flowers in October. And then this year I got flowers October, November, December, and January because we didn't get a freeze then. So it was pretty crazy to think about marigolds in January. Other ways I've used a journal. One year I documented all those dahlias in detail. And I think that's going to be really nice when I get, years from now, I can go back and look at that. I take monthly notes in there. I do all of my to-do lists, all my planting schedules, and I set intentions for every season. So these are my recommendations if you want to start a cutting garden this spring. You need a site that is full sun. You need high quality soil. Adding organic matter is paramount. I highly recommend installing some kind of irrigation or soaker hose on a timer that'll save you time and water. Once it gets warmer, zinnias, cosmos, sunflowers, gomphrena are nice starter cutting flowers. Transplants getting white yarrow, which is maybe one of my favorite flowers. All kinds of basils, echinaceas, and tuberose. And then you also want to add other elements for your cutting garden, so like foliage and greens. So you can use herbs, oregano, mint, geraniums, scented geraniums, artemisias, and then you want to add a nice textural element like a trailing nasturtium or a passion vine. So when planting a cutting garden, you want a variety of flower sizes and textures, adding different foliages. So when you're cutting your flowers, you have a nice cohesive arrangement rather than just like a lot of one variety of flower. So there is an art to cutting a flower. The goal is to have really long stems so that way you can play around with it in a vase and to have the maximum vase life. Vase life is like how long it lasts in a vase until it dies. So to increase vase life, there's a certain time of day, certain stage of growth, certain location on where to cut in the flower stem. And every flower is a little different. Some are branching, some are single stem, low growing, or tall that need netting. You always want to cut in cooler parts of the day. Early morning or evening is ideal when like the stem walls are open and receiving water, because during the day they kind of close up to save their energy and then they'll open again to rehydrate. You always want a clean vessel, like a clean jar. You always want clean cutting snips. That'll just keep the water nice and fresh, so you won't get like bacteria in the stems. You definitely want to let your flowers rest before you arrange them, so that way they give time to rehydrate. So first thing in the morning, I cut some flowers and then I let them sit for a couple of hours, have my coffee, and then I go in to start arranging them. So for example, anemones, that's what's growing in my garden right now. They have like a 7 to 10 vase life that's pretty long. They're kind of low growing. You can see they're kind of bushy at the bottom, and they have these like really long, thick stems and these beautiful velvet petals. And so when they grow, they kind of go up, and then they have this head that droops down, and then it kind of goes up and up and up, and then they just open up, and that's when you want to cut it. You want to cut it right when it opens up, because you don't want the bees to get them. The pollinators will get them, and they'll like do their little dance around the anthers, and then that sends signals to the flower to make seeds and move along with the flower cycle. So you want to cut it like right when it opens for maximum vase life. Another example is cosmos. They have a little bit shorter vase life, 5 to 7. They're branching. They have these really long stems and maybe like a couple of branching. So when the middle one's like almost open or just open is the best time. And you want to cut deeper than you actually think. So that way you can have longer stem and then it sends signals for the other parts of the plant to grow. So now that you're going to have these beautiful flowers growing in your garden, what are you going to do? What do you do in your garden, Laura? The number one thing is to be present. I am in my garden every morning, observing, taking notes, looking at things, what's going well, what can I improve, taking different like samples. I'm cutting flowers in the early morning. I'm weeding. I'm deadheading flowers to promote other blooms. I'm collecting seeds. Although cross-pollination things is something I want to explore. I don't know much about that, but supporting flowers, sometimes they get really tall and they kind of lean over and eventually they're going to want to go back up and reach for the sun. So when you cut, you have this like weird stem. So you want to make sure that you either use net or support them so that way they can grow nice and tall. Also, mulching and fertilizing is something I always do. I use pine straw mulch in my bed just because it's nice and fluffy. So having a garden definitely impacts our environment. If we all had gardens, which I think we might all do, we would be creating a haven for pollinators and wildlife. I've seen an insane amount of butterflies, skippers, bees. I've noticed cute little toads and birds and insects. We would be building healthy soil with microbes and happy earthworms. Increasing the biodiversity in the garden brings beneficial insects like green lacewings and ladybugs. And we can create shelters for wildlife and for food and wildlife. We would be making a positive impact just in our backyard. So if you grow your own flowers, you can have them in your backyard and you can cut them and enjoy them in your house, or you can share them with others. There's no long travel time in refrigerated airplanes, no weird toxic sprays. And I know you know this, but you always want to support your local farmers and your local cut flower farmers. And if you're looking for a florist, always ask that they use locally grown flowers. You can start your own compost to reduce waste. If you're arranging flowers, try not to use like the floral foam. If you're growing seeds, try to skip the peat moss and go for cocoa coir instead. And overall, I feel like gardening has a positive impact on people. Reduces stress, physical activity outside, connecting with the seasons. And for me, the garden is my favorite place to be. It's a place where I go to work, heal, and find joy. For sustainable practices, I feel like all of these are pretty standard. But what I want to talk about are these extreme weather patterns that we've been seeing. These very hot summers of 100 degrees for 80 days with less than 1.5 inches of rain from June to August. It's pretty draining. We got tired. Some of us gave up on our gardens. A little bit uninspiring, which is okay, and we're all trying to figure it out. How to garden in Central Texas while sustaining our energy and our resources. My main concern is water. How much water to use? Should I be even growing flowers in the summer? There are ways we can be mindful to help out our plants, though. For fertilizing, I use seaweed. It's a gentle, kind of like a multivitamin, giving some strength to my plants for these extreme temperatures. Using drip irrigation to get right there at the plant stems and covering it with a thick layer of pine straw really helps with temperature soil. And now we're just trying to figure out what flowers can tolerate the extreme heat with using less water. So we just got to experiment and see which ones work well. I know in my garden last year, Gomphrena was like beautiful and didn't even know it was 100 degrees for 80 days. And then my cardinal basil was flowering. There was no sun scorching, so that was pretty cool to see. And I know that there are other flowers out there. Which brings me to native and adaptable plants. Lots of different advantages. Lower maintenance, hardy, reduced water, pest resistant. And I've used native and adaptable plants in my arrangements. I've used kidney wood, which brings like a nice branchy structure with little white flowers that are really fragrant. I've used redbud branches with the beautiful magenta blooms. I've used frostweed flowers in September. Shrubby boneset brings a nice textural. Goldenrod, which is one of my favorites. Echinacea, grasses, blue stems. And I do want to move forward with using more native cutting flowers. And we should all be planting more native and adaptable plants in our landscapes and our gardens. So if I had a dream garden cutting bed, I would grow more wildflowers, lupines, gaillardias, those perennial wine cups, paintbrushes, all do well in the vase. I would grow different varieties of coreopsis, basket flowers, yarrow, erigno, which is like the little purple thistly flower, Mexican marigolds, which smell amazing and have these really cute yellow flowers. That's the picture in the middle. Maximilian sunflowers, all the goldenrod, salvias, bachelor buttons, rudbeckias, and native grasses. I have here the Native American Seed Company because I feel like that is a really good source to finding these seeds, and also the Wildflower Center plant sales. They have amazing options as well. I love fresh flowers, but I've also really grown to love dried flowers as well. I've grown statice and shawflower, gomphrena. Those are the dried flower all-stars. Nigella pods and larkspur are also other favorites. I was growing flowers last year for drying specifically, which means I was just growing them and cutting them right at their prime, bunching up and hanging them dry for at least 4 weeks. And they do last a long time. They don't last forever, but they do hold color for a year. And it brings just such a beautiful natural element into the home. I also love the creativity that comes with the dried flowers. You can make wreaths, crowns, bouquets, garlands, wall hangings, and they're all just so uniquely beautiful. So when to plant? We are zone 9A, which is new. We basically have a cool season and a warm season. In the fall is when I plant all my hardy annuals. I put all in my tender bulbs, my sweet peas. I sow all of my wildflowers, hardy annuals like bachelor buttons, larkspur, nigella, Orlea, Queen's Anne's lace, agrostemma, scabiosa, snapdragons. These are hardy and semi-hardy. So if we do get a hard freeze, I cover them. I grow all of these in my garden bed. I just want to baby them. I just want to make them nice and happy so that way I don't lose any of the growth that they have already gotten. In the winter, I'm mainly in the greenhouse. So I have a lot of seed trays going. Right now, I still have some statice. I have several basils. I'm growing starflower. I have some dahlia stars and some foxglove. And in the spring, which is soon, very soon, that's when I'm going to start direct sowing my zinnias, sunflowers, celotias, cosmos, amaranths, tuberose, and marigolds. And in the summer, you could do another round, like in April or June, another round of sunflowers, maybe a different variety, different kind of zinnia, maybe like a coxcomb celotia or flamingo. different amaranths, like the little dangle ones, the Love Lies Bleeding, marigolds, all different kinds. And in the late summer, if you really want to garden, you can start, your fall garden, another round of marigolds or cosmos or amaranths. So if we do get a hard freeze, I definitely cover my beds. And if you want more info on winter protection, you can check out my friend Scott Blackburn from New Garden Road. I know he just has some really super helpful tips on winter gardening. I've learned so many lessons, life and in the garden, with my time. I've learned to start small and then grow from there, find success, learn from my failures, and reflect and just keep growing. I've learned that high quality soil is key to growing plants. Adding organic matter is important. And if your flowers are not growing, then that means that your soil might need improvement. I've learned that I should not compare myself to other gardeners or florists, that we're together in this community, and that we should support and learn and be inspired from each other. I've learned that gardening has been really beneficial for my mental health and my physical health as well. I have learned that representation matters and that the flower industry is saturated with white women, and I'm proud to represent women of color in gardening and florists of color. When foraging flowers and foliage, I've learned to be careful with what plants I'm cutting to avoid spreading anything invasive. I've learned to set boundaries and to go with what works with my life presently and not what others want me to do or what I think I should be doing. And I've learned to be patient and how to listen to my intuition, be flexible with my time, to be resilient when something doesn't work out. Like I just lost all of my narcissists in that last phrase. I've learned to celebrate my successes and that to be proud of myself and to challenge myself to keep growing as a person. And so what is next for La Otra Flora? I'm gonna keep gardening, take it year by year, go what feels right. I don't know how many years I'm gonna be able to grow flowers like this in Central Texas, but I'm gonna savor every year. A couple of books here that I have on this table, you can look at them after. One of them is Wildflowers Across America, Lady Bird Johnson. That book is just so dreamy and I could just daydream in all those wildflower pages. Practical Botany for Gardeners, it goes into more sciencey things. I like really nerd out on that sometimes. Cut Flower Garden by Flora Farm. Erin does a really good job of, that was actually one of my first books that I really got into step-by-step gardening for cutting. Grow Your Soil by Diane. She taught me a lot about soil and soil structure and aeration. And then this next one, I say it like Texas Organic Gardening by Howard Garrett. I just feel like that's the way you say that book. And then Native Texas Plants by Sally and Andy Wazaski, which I'm like, they wrote that book and they survived a marriage, okay. I use that with a lot of like native plant references, which is really great. And that's all. Thank you all for coming and holding space for me.
On Zoom, but we'll take questions first from people here. And or if you don't mind, repeating back questions that people ask on the microphone, so people can from Zoom can. So feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions. Yes.
What is your favorite flower to plant for smell?
Oh, okay, so
We'll repeat it back.
So my favorite flower that I grow for smell, I mean, right now is all of my, I grew some Narcissus Early Cheer, and that one is just really very fragrant. I planted in the fall. It comes back every year. I did lose a lot of them this year in the freeze. I just forgot to cover, but they're super fragrant. Another one is Tuberose, super fragrant as well. So those are my top ones. I also love marigolds in general. They also are just very fragrant.
Maury?
So you mentioned that you have morning sun and then a little bit of afternoon sun. So it's conceivable that I could grow without full sun all day long, right? I mean, especially in the summertime when it's just baking hot.
Mhm.
So I like growing zinnias and cosmos and so on. It's possible to grow it without much.
Yes. So the question is, can I grow flowers in not full sun and have some inconsistent? I feel like flowers do best in full sun, but there's certain parts of my garden that are like covered by different trees. Like I have this beautiful pecan that gets like a little bit of shade. So that's kind of where I put some of my dahlias that I've grown in the fall. So that way, they're growing and growing, but then they get a little bit of relief from the afternoon. So I feel like picking your flowers and putting them in places that you think that they could benefit from a little bit of relief would be okay. I think that if you grow some flowers, they probably wouldn't grow as like full, and they might get a little bit of leggy, so that's maybe not the best flower to grow there.
I wanted to ask about marigolds that you grow late summer. How long are they alive? Like, how you were saying maybe even in October you have marigolds?
Yes. So the question is how to grow marigolds in late summer. I start them in seed trays in July, and then I grow them outside of my greenhouse because it gets too hot in there. I give them a little bit of afternoon shade. I have to go out there maybe 2 or 3 times a day to make sure that they don't dry out. And then once it's time in August, I put them in my garden to kind of give them some protection. And I give them lots of mulch and seaweed, and there's lots of protection from that sun. And they will continue to grow. And then I guess back, like October-ish is when it was not 100 degrees anymore, and so I took off the shade, and then that's when they really started taking off.
Two questions about bulbs. So how often do you take out your flower bulbs? And when is the right time to do that? Again, why the same way about like other bulbs?
So the question is how, tender bulbs growing them. So I feel like the anemone flowers are the ones that are kind of leave in the bed, and they have continuously come up, and I don't really dig them up. If I want to move them, then I'll move them like in the fall before they start growing again. My ranunculus plants, I feel like I've experimented with growing them multiple seasons, but sometimes they aren't as showy the second year for me, so I just treat the ranunculus as annuals. So it's kind of easy to just toss them when they're done. I have saved a couple of my favorite ones just because I don't want them repeatedly, but yeah, they just haven't been so showy. All the narcissus, I just leave in the ground to cover. And then, let's see what else. So the dahlias, which I haven't grown dahlias since that 2021. I have a couple just scattered around my garden I just don't do anything with. But one of them is actually growing under one of my pecan trees, and it gets a lot of shade. So I didn't do anything at all this past summer with my dahlia plants, and then in the fall, like October, November, I got a couple of blooms because it wasn't as hot in these as cooler temperatures.
Could you say what insight on growing plants from seed? It kind of hints you might have
Growing flowers from seed. So I use fresh seeds every year, and I grow them in seed trays. And I only grow them in seed trays because I want to get a head start of the season in my greenhouse. But I feel like I want to extend the season a little bit, and then when I put them in the ground, I have to make sure that they're nice in water, and I baby them all the time, just like the little infants, you know, I have to like make sure that they're hydrated and fed. And then once they start growing, yeah, that's when I like mulch them around. So, put them in the ground, yeah.
Do you keep nickel or cold, put them in stratifying or anything?
I feel like the only things that I kind of nick are some of like the blue bonnets. I do that, which I don't even know if you need to do that, but like, you know, the bigger ones that you soak, like the sweet peas, I definitely soak those for a little bit before I put them in the ground. And if they're really, really, really tiny, like snapdragons, you know, those are almost impossible to seed. But I just kind of, you know, just like one or two in each little seed tray, and then, you know, they'll maybe both come up, or none of them, or one of them, and I just kind of pick the strongest. And once they get, you know, their second set of leaves, that's when I know that I can either bump them up or I put them directly in the garden. And that's really the goal of starting seeds, is that you want to get them in the garden as soon as possible.
So how many leaves that
It depends on the flowers. Some of them are still growing, but I usually try to put them, you know, within 4 weeks, sometimes 5. And it really depends what the temperatures are like out. Like right now, my strawberries are really big, and I want to put them in the ground. I don't know if we're doing another trade, so yeah.
good advice?
I have a quick question. Do you have any favorite techniques you use to extend a flower with some of the flowers, like special ingredients in the water, or I've heard like for poppies burning the stems?
Yeah, so extending the base life of flowers, there are lots of different things, and every flower is different. Like you said, the poppies, those are, you know, kind of like weak breakers. So when you cut the poppy at the very base of the stem, you get either like a lighter, or, you know, like something heat source, and you would kind of sear the bottom of it in a little, like an inch. And I'm not sure if it's like to solidify or to make it stiffer or to seal it, but I know that it definitely kind of gives it a lot longer base. Narcissus, they're, you know, very like sappy. They have like a really slimy texture. And that's kind of toxic to other flowers, so I have to condition them separately for a few hours before I kind of combine them. And if you recut, then you have to condition again, because yeah, they release like a toxic thing. And then other flowers, dirty flowers, marigolds, zinnias, the flowers are pretty dirty, they murky up the water, so just changing the water, keeping it nice and fresh. I don't really put like floral preservative, but I know that some people put like agave or crystal form or something, but I just like to keep it fresh, water fresh.
Getting back to starting your seeds in the soil blocking, can you talk about what you use for that? Because I've read that doing a different mixture of soil for seed blocking, sometimes better. So I'm interested to hear you talk about that, and then where you get your supplies to the actual soil itself.
So for starting seeds in soil blocking, I think the key is to make sure that you get the consistency of the soil nice and moist, because you want to make like a molding. And I should have brought the soil block, but it's like a little mold of like different squares, and you just like stuff the squares in, and you just like, it's like a little hole punch, like you're punching all these little blocks of soil. But I use a mixture of like cocoa, you can get that in any plant nursery. Add a little bit of compost in there, and then I add vermiculite just to give it some aeration, and to help with like moisture level. So you want to get it nice and moist and kind of like a cakey mixture, so that we can make a nice mold. And once you put the mold in, that's when you can like use a toothpick to put in your seed. And they grow pretty quickly. And the thing with soil blocking is that there's not a lot of soil, so it dries out quickly. So you have to really be on top of watering that. I like using soil blocking in the winter mainly because less evaporation. In the summertime, I just use like 2-inch seed trays.
Do you fertilize the soil blocks?
Do I fertilize the soil blocks? So once once they are sprouting, once they have germinated, once they're growing, that's when I'll just like use a teeny bit of the seaweed emulsion. It's like a mixture, just to give a little bit of strength. But I know that there's all kinds of different fertilizers, but I'm just very simple and I just use that.
Now, you showed a picture of a black and white butterfly in the morning. That's a zebra. What flower was that?
Oh, it is a zinnian. Yes, the zebra butterfly was on a zinnian.
Zinnia?
Zinnian.
Zinnia. Okay. And, is it possible to take two seeds, say of the same flower species with different colors, say, and combine the two seeds to get a third color?
Oh, I don't know a lot about the cross-pollination process. I know that it's very specific and very tedious process. But I know that, you can grow a flower and save the seeds, the next year you grow it and it's completely different. And it's just, just different flowers have a different kind of cross-pollination process. But that is something I definitely know about.
Get the nasturtiums to survive freezing.
Nasturtiums in the winter. I have some nasturtiums in a pot, and I just put them in my greenhouse.
Okay, you recover them. Do something good.
Are there any flowers that you haven't grown that you're excited to try?
Flowers that I'm excited about trying. There's one flower, so I grow a lot for dried now, and there's one flower that I haven't grown that I'm going to, and I don't know really how to say it. It's like Xeranthemum, but it's like this little tiny white flower, and it tries to go on. It's so beautiful. So I will keep you updated on that. They're in my garden right now. They're sprouting, so I'm excited about that. I'm also really excited about growing tuberoses this spring. I know that they do really well at the heat, so I'm going to try that this year.
Okay, so questions on the Zoom. So Marcel asks, wondering what the advantage is of direct seeding zinnias and gumfrina versus starting indoors.
So I feel like I prefer direct seeding. I try to direct seed as much as I can when it's nice and warm for my zinnias and gumfrina. And it's mainly just to keep that process of growing consistent. I feel like if I put them in a seed tray and transfer them, and there's like this little period where they like have to transition into the ground and then they'll start growing again. But if they are direct seeded, I feel like they have a stronger root system and they'll just take off and be nice and bushy and beautiful.
All right, so Meredith asked, are there any cut flowers that grow with less than full sun?
Oh yeah. Less than full sun. I've grown a lot of flowers with partial, but they just don't get as like really, tall and bushy. I've grown calla lilies in shade. That was really interesting. I tried it. I had a full crop of calla lilies in full shade underneath my big pecan trees in person. Amazing. I have to really think about that one. That's a good question. Iris is another one. Violet. Oh, we got the oxalis, yeah. But yeah, for cutting flowers, try calla lilies.
Okay.
Any of those bulbs in the shade?
So Marcel asks, where do you get your pine straw mulch and what fertilizers do you recommend?
So I like using pine straw just because it's nice and like fluffy and when they're growing cutting flowers, you want the soil just really fluffy, really easy for them to grow these really nice healthy roots. And so having that really light mulch doesn't really weigh them down. I think I got my shop on Hillary Street, I happened to. And
Yeah,
I've gotten from the Natural Gardener.
I think Natural Gardener is the best place. I heard from Tillery a couple weeks back, and they're not going to carry it anymore because they weren't getting enough people purchasing it. But yeah, if a block of people wanted to get it, I'm sure they would buy it. That's what they told me.
And then for fertilizers, I just use, again, the seaweed mix and then also fish emulsion. Sometimes I combine it a little bit. I want to try compost tea. I know that the Natural Gardener also has a nice stock right now. Try that one.
So Jeannie asks, where do you source your seeds, especially the Gumfrina? And a lot of people piped in with different seed companies like Baker Seed, Johnny's, Renee's Seeds. And you already shared Native American Seed.
Yeah, so I get most of my seeds from Johnny's, I've gotten Renee's, I've gotten Flora Farm, I've used Swallowtail Seeds. There's so many different seed companies. I definitely try to find those like, smaller brands just to see what different varieties I could grow. The Botanical interest in that a lot too.
All right, I think that's it on the Zoom, and my laptop froze up again, so.
Are there any YouTubers or people that you watch or listen to that are podcasts?
Oh, I wish I listened to more podcasts, but I'm more of like that. I listen to music when I'm gardening or nothing at all, because I need to like clear my head. I feel like sometimes if it's in my ear, I'm like, oh. But I have to get back to you on that. I know there's like all kinds of gardening podcasts out there. There's so many.
You said in your presentation that using cocoa coir is better than peat moss. I've never really used either, so I'm wondering what the difference is between the two and why you recommend one or the other.
Well, peat moss is on a non-renewable resource. So I've heard that, limiting use of that. I'm not growing like a lot of flowers, but I know that if, everyone did a little bit, then you could make a big impact. And I use cocoa, which is like coconut husk, so it's like really fibrous and really nice. It's also like sterile, so that's why I add like the compost and the vermiculite to kind of make this mixture. And it's just basically a more sustainable option.
The cocoa helps it drain a lot more effectively, right?
Yeah, again, I have to really, when I'm doing the soil blocking or anytime I'm putting or using seed trays, I have to make sure to watch those water moisture levels. Because I could lose a whole seed tray in a day if I don't water.
I have a question about irrigation, specifically what do you use and then when and how long do you irrigate?
It depends. So drip irrigation, it depends on the season. I have a couple of different ones. I have some soaker hoses that are in the back that are connected to a spigot in my house that I have on a timer. And then I also have drip irrigation, like piping that is like a little bit under the soil level or just right above my raised beds. Right now in the winter, I don't have it on right now. I just have been kind of hand watering just because we've gotten rain and stuff. So I'm trying to conserve water that way. But once it gets warmer, I have it on the timer early in the morning before the sun comes up. And it depends on the time of year. Sometimes I can use it for 20 minutes. Sometimes if I want to do water, I have them on for an hour. But again, having the drip irrigation saves on that water evaporation, and having that thick layer of mulch on top to protect, it'll save that water.
Right, is that it?
You guys have been a great audience.
Yeah, and a reminder, about next month, we'll be talking about Ruiz sisters. And don't forget to pick up blocks. We have lots of seeds. There's some, it looks like, potatoes, kale, seeds, some yarrow, it looks like. Some other herbs. I brought some simple, seeds. And there's some more snacks. And don't forget about the garden garage sale. And we want so please check the books. One book per person. Those are the ones that Heather, this was such a good talk. Great job. Oh my gosh. So inspired. Like, gotta add more flowers in my gardens. Yeah.